You're listening to Wildlife Control Consultant, where we provide research-based information on all things related to vertebrate pest management. Hi everyone, Stephen Vantassel here, Wildlife Control Consultant, bringing you another episode of the Wildlife Control Consultant podcast. Hey, I hope your week went well. I have been, recovering from a lot of travel, and I had to do some more travel this past week. But nevertheless, moving ahead, looking forward to a long weekend here as we're coming up to Memorial Day holiday. Hope you'll take a few moments and think about that day of memorializing those who died in our nation's wars. So it's a very somber time, and so be sure to include your thoughts about that. If you wanted to learn more about the Wildlife Control Consultant podcast, essentially we are a research-based information resource on all things related to vertebrate pest control. So if you're wondering what that is, we deal with animals that have a spine. So we do deal with insects from time to time, but only in relationship to vertebrates like raccoons and skunks and squirrels, prairie dogs, beaver, moles, voles, all that kind of stuff. So we're glad to have you on board. So we tend to be rather technical, and so if you're interested in something unusual, different, that has some depth to it, raising questions that haven't been thought about by the average wildlife control operator, this is the place for you. We do welcome inquiries into our podcast, as well as if you have questions, comments, thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. You can put them, of course, in the comments section of the podcast, or you can send them to wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. I do have a website which has a variety of materials. You can just click for my store, and we have books and other materials available to help you do wildlife control better. So we want to be sure that we're responsible and effective in our management of vertebrate pests. All right, enough of all that. So let me pause here. This week, I wanted to talk about an informational resource that you as a wildlife control professional, whether you're part-time, full-time, or perhaps you're someone who is thinking about getting involved in the wildlife control field, I think this is an area that more teenagers should be thinking about. If you love the outdoors, like working with people, like working with animals, and are not afraid of heights and not afraid of dealing with wildlife and the need to control them, that is, kill them, to put it bluntly, if you're able to do all that and handle some tough smells, then this might be the business for you to consider. I do think that too many people are going off to college who really shouldn't be going to college. You know, we talk about, you may have heard of the concept of dirty jobs. This can be a dirty job, to be sure, but it's certainly a manual labor job, but it also requires some people skills, and a lot of individuals need assistance in resolving conflicts with vertebrate pests. And so it takes a special kind of person. It's not your traditional pest control job. And the difference with this is that people who are involved in vertebrate pest control, we don't have a lot of pesticides available to us. We have rodenticides, but as a general rule, that's about it. There's a few exceptions here and there, but you're primarily using physical means, exclusion, traps, shooting, even hand capture by hand. I don't mean necessarily bare hands, but there are tools, hand tools that allow you to capture animals. And so it does require a special kind of person who is willing to grind it out, because a lot of times in pest control, sometimes the pesticide can cover mistakes. That's not the case in wildlife control. So, because sometimes that last animal can really drive you nuts. I had a red squirrel once that took me a month to capture. I caught all the others pretty quick. The last one took me a month, and it cost me a ton of money because I was charging by the animal back then. So that's the kind of difference where situations where you have pesticides can sometimes cover mistakes that are made. We don't have that in vertebrate pest control. So this week, I wanted to talk about a magazine that's for professionals. We have a hierarchy of information in wildlife control fields. So let me kind of break that down for you. So you have peer-reviewed journal articles. These are typically written by academics who are specialists inside of a particular area of wildlife. And then it goes to what's called gray literature. That's peer-edited material, sort of like the Vertebrate Pest Conference. Oh, what's an example of a peer-reviewed journal? That would be the Journal of Wildlife Management from the Wildlife Society. The Wildlife Society Bulletin would be another example. You have journals such as Mammalogy, and there's many others. But a lot of these are behind firewalls, and so you don't have access to those unless you're associated with an academic university. There are a lot of material that is becoming more available through the internet. Sometimes authors will put materials up, but by and large, these tend to be rather technical, sometimes rather arcane and really obscure pieces of information, and they're written at a very technical level. The next step is, of course, the Vertebrate Pest Conference proceedings. These are sort of the gray literature. This is materials that are peer-edited rather than peer-reviewed. Peer-edited means they're just someone who is experienced in the field of wildlife control or knowledgeable about wildlife damage management will review the article, will look over the article and try to find some major gaffes, tighten up the grammar and clarity and this sort of thing. But it doesn't go through the same level of rigor, editorial review that you have in the peer-reviewed materials. And then you start getting down into books, which can be of various qualities, of both on a technical level and then, of course, anecdotal level, sometimes relating people's personal experiences. And then we also have trade magazines. Now, Pest Control Technology is a trade magazine, Pest Control Magazine. Those are trade magazines for the pest control industry. But we really only have one magazine dedicated to the field of wildlife control on the commercial level. And that's Wildlife Control Technology Magazine, W.C.T. magazine. And I'm going to show you a copy here. Let me kind of hold it up close. Now, obviously, this is from 2017, I believe, November, December. But you get the idea. It is about, they tend to be somewhere in the vicinity. Let me get a page count here. About 40 pages. Usually you'll have about a third of the document sort of into advertising, and it will have articles. Let me just sort of read the table of contents here on this one. You'll have an editorial comment, and the editor of the magazine is Eric Arnold. He's out of Ohio, and he is not just the editor, he's also the owner, according to my understanding. So the table of contents would be destroying burrows of slow reinvasion of ground squirrels, the reality of tripped and empty traps, controlling pigeons with shooting, great blue herons, the common but not common call. So those are the main feature articles, and then they'll have sometimes standard articles written usually by people who are heavily involved in the wildlife control field, sort of like a column. One of them would be, let me try to pull one up here. You'll have sometimes a species profile that'll pick an animal and try to give you some biological background on that animal. And then you'll have another article which might be related to sort of the experiences of a long-time wildlife control operator. In this case, it's Paul Winkleman out of Wisconsin. He's been doing wildlife control for decades, and he will often tell anecdotal stories of some of his experiences in the field and some suggestions he would make on techniques that can be very useful for you to learn, because a lot of times we're trying to find techniques that'll work for you, because understand there's different laws that in different states, and sometimes a person's using a technique in another state that you may say, well, why would I want to use that take? That's, people sometimes get a little aggressive in this industry and they'll say that's stupid. But often that's said because they don't understand the legal restrictions, for example, of another individual. But by learning about how they handle certain wildlife control complaints, and if you have the same species, you may learn a tip about a new bait, maybe a new trapping technique, perhaps a new tool that will help you resolve a problem. And you sort of glean from their professional experience, and then you adapt it into your own company. And sometimes just the contrast can be very helpful for you to reflect on your own type of services. Another common standard column article would be from The Toolbox by Jack Ammerman. In this one, he is talking about silencers, right, that it's used in shooting. And so this is a magazine, again, written by professionals for professionals. It's a magazine I used to write for back in the day. I would have liked to have continued to writing for it, but sometimes personal issues get in the way. But what can I say? They do, just in fairness, you need to know this, there is a big need for authors for the magazine, so there is some recycling of earlier material, so it's not all fresh. That's more of a problem for people like myself who have followed the magazine for years. So you're sometimes like, well, that's an article from a magazine that I had, 10 years ago. But nevertheless, if you're new, that's not going to affect you at all because there's still a lot of great stuff. I actually purchased like the first 10 or 15 years. I used to have them in the day and I got rid of them and I regretted that. And then I went back and purchased the magazines. I also had them in a CD form as well, but I got the hard copies. It gave me more issues than what I had, I think, digitally. Nevertheless, and I'm slowly working or reworking my way through the magazine history. So it's certainly something for you to think about if you're interested in getting actionable information. It's not peer reviewed. It's peer reviewed insofar as Eric Arnold is he's obviously reviewing it as he's editing your article to be published. But nevertheless, it is a trade magazine. So it's written by professionals for professionals who are involved in the servicing of clients who need vertebrate pest services. So there's a wealth of information here. You can really learn a lot from people who have to do it for a living, and they have clients who are requiring success because it's hard to hide. It's hard to hide failure in the wildlife control field. So if you go to the website, and the website is W.C.T. magazine, that's W.C. for cat, T for Tom, magazine, just like the regular magazine that you would read here. Let me hold it up again. Okay, WCTmagazine.com. You'd go to that page, and it will have some information about the magazine. Again, it's been out for, it's got to be 40, getting close to 40 years now, maybe 35. I'm trying to remember when it started. I think it started in 1992. So yeah, 37 years, coming up maybe the 40th anniversary in a few years. So it'll have some videos for you to see if you want to kind of get a sense for some of that information, but perhaps most importantly for those of you wanting to check it out, it actually has a free trial issue available for you to download. And this is from the March-April 2024 edition. And so you can get something quite up to date and say, hey, what am I going to learn from this, and see if it's worthwhile for you to decide to subscribe to it. Now it has two different types of subscriptions. It has both the digital format subscription. It also has the print version subscription. So I'm a little bit more old school. I like the print edition. So I pay the $40 for the print edition. You can also get it in digital. So they're going to email you the document, which will be in a PDF, my Acrobat format, and that's $30 because obviously they're saving a lot in shipping. Shipping costs is killing the print industry. So, but for those of us who like to go analog, right? Not everything we like to do is digital. That's you're going to pay a little bit more for you, but choose the version that you like. But certainly check out the magazine. Let me kind of pull this one up here for your view. And so, again, you have some ads, and that could be helpful for you. You may say, I don't want to read ads. Well, sometimes you're learning about new vendors that you may be able to save money on with the products you're purchasing now. Sometimes you need to make sure that the vendor is giving you a good price, even if not the best price, that you're getting something in fairness to the market. So in this particular issue, let me kind of blow that up a little bit for you, those of you that are able to view the video here. Here we have a WC recap. That means it's a republished article from one that was done earlier. And then we have Don't Forget the Telephone, English Sparrows, Plan Ahead for the Future, Damage to Cranberry Fields, Raccoon Traps and Lures by Dirk Shearer, The Importance of Knowing Your Industry by Robert Schmidt, and then you have your departments, which is, again, as I mentioned before, those standard columns that you would have, which would be the from the editor, from the toolbox, Urban Coyote Control, Around the Cage Traps by Paul Winkelmann, and then of course the species profile in this issue, it's going to be coyote. So the species profile again tries to give you a little bit of biological background on particular species. So every issue they have a different species profile of animals that are involved that we deal with in vertebrate pest control. So it's about 40 pages long, and you can just simply work your way through the magazine and read this for your own, and it can be just determined for yourself whether this is something you might find useful in improving your own business. As the moniker says, success starts with knowledge, which is a kind of a catchy phrase for you, because it's certainly true, without a doubt. So $40, you may think that's a bit high, but again, it's a niche field here, folks. Publishing is expensive, and certainly shipping it is expensive, but I think you'll find that's a $40. Again, I don't make any money on this particular magazine. Because I used to write for the magazine. He is looking for authors, is my last understanding. So maybe a place where you can write an article for them and read about what other people are doing from around the country, because there's so much information that needs to be disseminated within the wildlife control field, and W.C.T. magazine is certainly playing a role in that, and it may be something for you to check out. I think if you're in business, in the wildlife control business, I think it's worthy for you to look at, particularly if you're younger in the first 5 to 10 years of your business. After that, you might pick up an issue here or there that might be something that will intrigue you. But again, you never know. It's like information is like looking for diamonds. There's a lot of stuff you're like, oh, I've seen this before. This is old news. But that can be important, reinforcing the fundamentals. But sometimes you get that one gem, and it may have taken you 5 issues to get it, 5 magazines to get that one gem. I tell the same thing when people go to training at conventions, or if you're doing the pest control training. You say, I've heard it all before. Why am I going for this? Sometimes, again, that repetition of learning the fundamentals, but every now and again you get that one fact that pays for the entire training period. Because knowledge, sometimes those little tricks, those little techniques can be gold for you. And because animals are always doing something new, doing something different. Laws are changing, and you need to be sure that you're developing mastery. And that takes time, and training and learning is about reducing the amount of mistakes you have to have in order to master your field. And I can assure you, having made plenty of mistakes, it is a whole lot easier to read what to do and what not to do than to experience it. So check it out, W.C.T. Magazine. If you want to check out the website, go to WCTmagazine.com. You can look at that issue and determine and then subscribe to the magazine if you think it's something worthwhile for you. Hope you found that helpful. Again, I'm Stephen Vantassel. I'm the owner of Wildlife Control Consultant, where we bring you technical information on all things related to the vertebrate pest control field. Would love to hear from you. You can reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. Thoughts, criticisms, suggestions for new shows. If you have questions, love to get those types of questions. And of course, if you want to inquire in some of our services in terms of PowerPoint development, watermarking photographs, helping organize your images, perhaps doing some ghostwriting for you, perhaps doing a training event for you, whether through digital or in person. And then, of course, I provide some expert testimony as well. Let me know. Perhaps we can talk and see what we can provide you in terms of the services that we give. Thanks for listening. Till next time, take care, everybody. This is the disclaimer for Wildlife Control Consultant Podcast. Vertebrate pest control is an inherently dangerous activity involving risk of bodily injury to you, others, and or property. Vertebrate pest control also involves legal issues, so be sure to always follow national, state, provincial, and local laws when using pesticides and or other control methods when controlling pests. Wildlife Control Consultant LLC, Stephen M. Vantassel, or their affiliates are not responsible for your use of the information provided here. Always consult a qualified and appropriate professional before employing the information provided here.